Hey
There we are.
everyone. There we are. Welcome back to another Writing Diversity series. If you're here joining us live, leave a comment in the chat box and say hi. If you're new here, I'm Vanessa. I'm a YA fantasy, paranormal, and horror author, writer, and book publisher. So on this channel, I talk about writing and all things book related. And in today's live stream is part of my Writing Diversity series. So this is a series I created to help writers learn how to write diverse characters. So in today's live stream, I'm going to be chatting with author T.A. Beasley, and we're going to be discussing writing Black characters. So, Teresa, do you want to say hi and give everyone a brief introduction about yourself?
Oh, yes. Hello, everyone. I'm Teresa Beasley. I write under the pen name T.A. Beasley, and I am a young adult contemporary writer as well as an adult thriller writer. I'm also a podcaster and book reviewer, and I'm excited to be here talking with Vanessa today.
Yeah. So, today, so couple quick announcements that I want to make before we get started. So the first one, and this is one that I say every single time, but I always like to remind people that are watching that, no group is a monolith. And so Teresa is here graciously sharing with us her experience as a Black woman. And hopefully this will help other writers out there who are wanting to write Black characters. But keep in mind that her experiences do not represent all Black people. So make sure you do your research, get sensitivity readers for your stories, all that jazz. So that was the first thing I wanted to touch on. The second thing I want to mention really quick before we start is that I may have to, unfortunately, at some point during this interview, I may have to pause and step away for a couple minutes. So I'm the only one home right now, so I may have to stop and answer the door at some point. Hopefully it won't happen till we're done, but just in case, I wanted to give you guys a heads up. So it shouldn't take too long, though, probably just about 2 minutes. So now, so with that all out of the way, let's dive right into some of the questions. So, starting off, since we're talking about writing Black characters, I wanted to start off by asking you, how do you think being a Black woman in America has shaped your life and your experiences?
Well, that's a good question. I will say it's kind of made me cautious and guarded at times, um, angry at times, but also stronger and determined. And it made me realize that I would have to be educated, and I needed to educate myself as much as I can with everything that I can learn. So it also helped me understand that I'm going to be judged, looked down on, no matter what I say or do. And sometimes, in some instances, you're treated like you're stupid and nothing you do or say matters. I've been in some situations like that as well. So, mainly being a Black woman in America, I've realized that with the experiences that I've had, that I just need to be cautious and I need to educate myself and just don't let that hinder me on what I'm trying to do or what I'm trying to become.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Um, so with your experiences, being with your experiences, have you ever experienced um, discrimination and racism or racism? And if you have, how have you dealt with it?
I think you can face discrimination and racism every day. So I just choose not to let it be my story. I choose, for instance, let me give you some examples. Um, I had an experience in a grocery store where I walked into the grocery store and there was a white woman walking beside me, and she clutched her purse and put it up to her chest and tried to hurry up and walk past me as if I was going to rob her, which I've had that a lot. And then another experience that I had that really bothered me was there was a lady walking down the street. It was a middle-aged white woman, and there was like a crack in the sidewalk, and she tripped and sprung her ankle on that crack. So me and my husband stopped our car. We got out. We ran over there to her to make sure she was okay. And then the car behind us had two white women in it, and they rolled down their window and told us that they were calling the police on us because I guess they assumed that we were attacking her, but we were trying to help her because she had fell, her ankle was starting to swell, and she was starting to cry. And so we asked her if she wanted us to take her to the nearest hospital. And she said, "No, I just need to get to my next destination. Do you mind dropping me off at my next destination? Because I have a long way to walk to get there." So my husband picked her up, we put her in our truck, and we drove her to her next destination and got her into that place safely. But it was just them just assuming that we were attacking her instead of trying to help her. Um, I wish people wouldn't think that all Black people are bad people, and that we can't do something good for people. But, that's just how some people think. And that's one of the things I dislike because I don't like being put in that category.
Yeah.
So yeah, I deal with racism. A lot of times I ignore it, or I just let them know that they're being a racist and they need to pray. I tell them to pray, and that I'm going to pray for them. So a lot of times that's how I deal with it.
Cool. So, has that changed or affected you've how you interact with the white people, or how you view them or your interactions with them?
No, no. I work in an office where I work with a lot of white folks, and a lot of my writer friends are white. I have friends outside of work that are white. So no, I don't let one experience with someone change how I'm going to interact with the people that I love and I'm loyal to. That I don't let that affect me because somebody outside of that wants to be, silly or be rude. I'm not going to let that make me judge the people that I already love and trust. So no,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't let it bother. I don't let it bother me. I have tough skin.
Well, we need it. We need it a lot
Yeah.
of times. Um, so, uh, going off to kind of the next question is, so there are lots of stereotypes that we see of Black people in the media, and you kind of even gave examples of, what are things that perpetuate the stereotypes, being
Mhm.
seen as bad, or like you're there to hurt someone or rob them or whatever. So, the next question was, how do you think uh, these stereotypes have shaped others' perceptions of you and your perception of yourself?
Um, well, for me, media, when it comes to Black people, I think it's made Black people look foolish and uneducated. I think it makes Black people look violent and that they don't mind acting a fool or looking like an idiot for money. I also believe that going along with the saying people will do anything for money, I think I wish people would stop looking at reality TVs because I think that type of media is what makes Black people look really bad. But I don't really, it doesn't make me perceive myself like them, or it just makes me sad to see that things like that are happening. So I don't want to be put in a position to where I have to defend myself against being perceived in that manner. So I don't really, I mean, everybody's gonna perceive you the way they want to. I can't change people's mind, but I just try to carry myself in a way that where they won't put me in the same boat as those type of people. But I do think that media, you know, makes Black people look bad. I mean, we look like what other people think that we're supposed to look like. So it's like if they think that we're bad or that we're violent or we're the angry Black woman or we're the angry Black man, we're selling drugs or we're yelling and screaming and fighting all the time, you know, media perceives that, shows us like that. So then people outside of that looking at those type of shows or that type of TV or that type of media will believe that everybody, every Black person they encounter is going to be like that, and it makes me sad.
Yeah.
But I don't put myself in the same category as that type of media, so because I don't carry myself like that.
Well, that's, I mean, I feel like that's a good lesson for all of us to, go by, is like, don't let that define how you present yourself to.
Right,
to
right. That's true.
So, uh, so let's talk about colorism for a minute. Um, and now for those of you who don't know, colorism is the preferential treatment, I'd say, of light-skinned people of color over dark-skinned people of color. So there tends to be more privileges and advantages for lighter-skinned people of color. So my question is, what are your thoughts on colorism within the Black community, and how do you think that has uh, how, how do you think it has impacted you?
Um, well, colorism, it is a lot of colorism. I mean, and you can see that light-skinned people are treated different than dark-skinned people. But it impacted me mainly in high school. Growing up, a lot of students I went to school with didn't care for me because I was light-skinned and I had long Black hair. So one high school I went to, it was a lot of bullying because that was the only reason why they were bullying me is because I was light-skinned and I was good in school and I had long hair, and there was a couple of girls there that did not like that. So and I won't say their names, but one girl told me that she was going to cut all my hair off because I thought I was better than them because I was lighter than them and my hair was prettier than theirs. So I remember my brother told me the only way that you're going to be able to get them to leave you alone is if you just face it head on. So it's either you go to school and you face them and you confront your bully, or you come home and confront me. And I was like, my big brother, he's older than me. I was like, I don't want to be confronted by my big brother. So I'm just gonna have to go deal with this. So I went to school the next day, and when she came to me and was like, yeah, after school, I'm gonna cut your hair. I'm gonna get you. I put out a pair of scissors and I said, well, if you're gonna cut my hair, I'm gonna cut yours too. So let's just deal with it now. If you want to cut hair, if you cut my hair, I'm gonna cut yours. Because my hair was really long. It was like to my bottom. And I didn't like wearing my hair down because with my hair down, it irritates my neck. But hers was a little bit shorter than mine. Hers was like to her, well, it was to her shoulders. And I told her, okay, well, if we're cutting hair, we're going to cut each other's hair. So let's do it. And then after that, she left me alone. And when I got home, I told my brother what happened. And he was like, I told you, you got to face these things, head on. So mainly I got the difference with the colorism when I was in high school, not middle school, well, in middle school too, because there was a dark skinned girl there that just didn't like me because I was light skinned and she wanted to fight me because of that. But it was mainly in school. But as an adult now, I don't really get any issues or problems with that. But yeah, when I was younger, yeah, it was a problem. I went home and told my mom, I just want to cut all my hair off because I'm never going to have friends because my hair is too long. And I'm just going to, get some dark makeup or something and put it on my face and maybe they'll like me. But
Yeah.
I was like, girl, no, you're not doing that. So, but yeah, it was mainly in high school and in middle school that I had issues with the colorism. But once I faced it, they kind of just left me alone after that.
Yeah. I I like that response you had to your bully. I think that's so funny, and I love how you kind of handled that situation. Um, so let me see. Um, so another question, kind of still on the topic of colorism. Um, I know you said you mainly experienced it in high school, and you shared that experience with the bully. Uh, but did you ever experience any, like either from teachers or staff or any of the adults there, did you ever experience any uh, privilege or special treatment or anything that stuck out to you?
Um, I really didn't get racism from my teachers. One of my favorite teachers was a older white man. He was my English teacher. His name was Mr. Archery. He did pass away when I was in high school. He committed suicide. And he was one of my favorite teachers. He was my English teacher. So I was close with him because of love of reading and love of writing. But then I had my African American history teacher, Mrs. Fields, I believe it was Mrs. Fields. She she did have a little favoritism when it comes to the students because a lot of the black students in that particular high school, we all wanted to take her class because she was teaching us about our history and about some of the iconic figures that a lot of the other teachers didn't teach. And then there was a lot, and I will say there was several white students that fought to get into that class because they wanted to understand. And one of them was a friend of mine. But other than that, I didn't really get any like teachers or staff members there, like cafeteria workers or janitorial staff or anything like that, that actually was rude or mean or said anything out of pocket to me or anything. No, I can't say that I did.
Yeah. And not just like rude or mean, but like no one ever, um, I guess, treated you better than the other students that were maybe darker skinned.
Um, ooh, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, all my high school. Well, the high school that I graduated from, Bossy, Benjamin Bossy High School, it was a predominantly black high school, so all the teachers there treated us all the same. I did go to a different high school, which was North High School, and this is in my hometown of Evansville, and it was predominantly white there. So, and you did have some teachers that some of the dark skinned people they would say comments to them, but the students that they were speaking to would talk up back to the teachers, so they didn't let it like hinder them. And sometimes, if we were late to school, they wouldn't ask us. If the light skinned people were late for school, like late for class, I'll say, they didn't ask us for like a hall pass, because normally when you're late, they're like, "Do you got a hall pass to tell us why you were late?" They would let us slide more so than the dark skinned kids. they would say, no, you can't come in class because you have to go get a pass. But a lot of times those students would speak up like, well, you let her come in here and you didn't have make her have a pass, so I'm not going to get a pass either
Mm,
because you didn't make her have a pass. And
yeah.
a lot of time I would agree with them, you didn't make me have a pass. So if they need to go get a pass, then I need to go get a pass too. So
Yeah.
I would agree with that dark skinned person because it's not fair. If I didn't have to have one when I came into the classroom, they shouldn't have to have one either. And if you're going to make them go to the office to get one, then I'm going with them to get one too because it's not fair.
Yeah.
So yeah, that did happen a couple of times.
Okay. Okay. Um. So, let me see. Um. So my next question was actually about hair.
Oh,
Um. So it works out that we were sort of talking about hair when we had the colorism question. But, since hair tends to play an important part in the Black community,
mhm.
and many of us have strong feelings about our natural hair, I wanted to ask if you would share your experience with your hair growing up and how it is now, and sort of just how you feel about your natural hair.
Now, I will say my natural hair is very curly and wavy, and I do not like it at all. I did not like my hair growing up because it was so wavy and curly. So I relaxed my hair a lot just to get that wave and that curliness out because I just did not like it. Um, but growing up, it was, my mom always made me do the 100 strokes of the hair because your hair is your strength. And especially for Black women, my grandmother and my aunts and my mom would always tell us that our hair is our strength. And the Native American in us, she always told us that, your grandmother, which my mother's grandmother was pure Native American. And so she would make them brush their hair 100 times when they got up and before they went to bed. So my mom would make me and my cousins do the same thing because it was, you can't go to bed until you stroke your hair. And I'm like, I'm sleepy. I'm ready to go to bed. But she would make me she would brush my hair 100 strokes when I got up and 100 strokes before I went to bed. And she did that until I got into high school. And then she would like, don't forget to do your strokes for your hair. So, but it was just, I don't know if that was just a family thing or if other people, I do know some other, African American women, Black women that do that and Native American women that do that. But that was just a thing in our home. But I just didn't like my natural hair because it was just too wavy and curly. So I always relaxed it. Like I said, as I said before, my hair got me in a lot of trouble and a lot of fights. So that was another reason why I was like, this hair, I just want to chop it off because it did get me in a lot of fights.
Mm.
But I like to straighten my hair out, but my husband likes me to keep it curly. He likes the wavy curly, but I like to straighten it. But yeah, my hair, my relaxed hair always got me in trouble. My natural hair, I just didn't want to deal with it because it was just too curly and wavy.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I remember. How old were you when you first got relaxer in your hair?
Um, I was in my teens, so I think it was like right before high school. So it was right before my freshman year. Because before that, my mom wouldn't let me do it. She was
Hmm.
like, no. But I think it was going into my freshman year. I was okay. She was okay with me doing the relaxed hair.
Okay. Yeah. See, for me, it was like my mom started relaxing my hair when I was really, really young. I think I was like maybe around 8 or something.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because my hair is really, really curly as well. And so every time she tried to comb through it, I would be crying all the time. Like, stop pulling my hair. And
Hair.
so
Yep.
and she hated trying to comb my hair, so she was like, you know what, we're just gonna relax it and it'll be easier to deal with. And so, so I got to relax pretty young, and I did that. I kept it relaxed, I think, up until my mid-20s, and then like a lot of my hair, um, I did this one style one time, and when I went to take out the braids, the style,
Mhm.
didn't do a good job doing trying to take it out. It got tangled and a mess, and had to end up
Oh,
cutting it all off.
it.
Um,
Oh,
and so, since that time that I cut it all off, I just went back to natural. I was like, I'm done relaxing. Time to go back to natural. So
natural. Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. I'm still a relaxed girl. I still relax it. Matter of fact, I just did it here recently.
the thing I hate about relaxing, though, I mean, I like the look of it, but what I hated was the process doing it, because my head would always be burning me.
Burning.
I'm like, "My head is on fire, can we rinse it out now?" My mom would be like, "Just a few more minutes." Like, "Can you hold on a few minutes?" Uh,
Yeah. Because when it burns, it really burns.
oh, yeah.
So,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then after you get it out from the burn spots, there's like sores there because
Mhm.
it burnt, when it was in. So
Yeah.
those times I didn't like it. I
Yeah,
didn't like.
I do not miss those times at
Yeah,
all.
yeah, those. I just don't like, and my hair too with humidity. If it gets too hot, I look like Diana Ross because my hair just it poofs out, and you get
Yeah.
this big old poofy afro. So a lot of times in the summer, I'll braid my hair because I don't like that big old poofy, and you can't do anything with it. It just poofs, and then I have this big afro. So a lot of the
You
times
should
in the summer, I'll get braids.
yeah. You should see, if you're one of my Facebook friends, so if you go
Uh-huh.
on my Facebook page and look at my pictures, I have a picture from several years ago where I was going to this, um, theme party. It was like well, I forget. It was a decade party. I forget which decade. Um, I want to say 70s maybe or something. I don't remember. But I had my hair in that big poofy
People.
afro.
Now I'm gonna have to go look.
Yeah. So, um, okay. So next question was, uh, is about code switching. Um, so do you want to share a little bit with us about what code switching is, and if there have been any situations or circumstances where you find you've had to code switch yourself?
Well, to me, and I mean, I'm not saying this is correct or not, but to me, code switching is when you're changing your voice and your body language to fit whatever situation that you're in.
Mhm.
Um, and some people do this and don't realize that they're doing it. Me included. Um, for example, the way I am at home with my husband, the funny, laid back, clowning person is totally different than how I am when I'm at work. When I'm at work, I'm business minded. My voice tones are different. My body language is different. Um, and like when I'm out with friends or I'm doing an event, my demeanor and voice and tones are totally different too. So, at my job, I work at a hospice company during the day, and they normally laugh at me because I'll be talking really serious to them, and then the phone will ring, and I'll pick up the phone, and I'm this totally different person on the phone, and they're like, "How do you do that?" And I'm like, well, you gotta change to fit the situation that you're in. It's not it's not that hard. But they tell me that all the time, that they don't see how I do that, because I'll be in a really serious conversation and then the phone will ring and I'll pick it up. And I don't know if it's a family member or if it's like another business calling. So I'll change my tone and demeanor and everything. And they're like, what? I mean, so, yeah. So I do a lot of code switching, a lot. That's just me. And that's just how I perceive code switching, as being, you kind of change and fit to the circumstance or the situation that you're in.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and to that extent, I think, at a point, I think we all sort of code switch.
Mm-hmm.
Because the way you talk and act around your coworkers and your boss, it's not going to be the same way
Same way.
you
Mm-hmm.
do at home with family and with friends.
Right.
So I think in a way we all sort of code switch. But I think, for some people, this is not for everyone, because I don't think I do much code switching myself. But for some people within the Black community, you may find them switching how they talk, depending on which group of friends they're hanging out with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
And do you find that true for yourself, or are you pretty much the same across the board with friends and uh, different groups of friends and family?
I'm basically the same. The only time I'm different is when I'm at work.
Yeah.
Because when I'm at work, I have my professional hat on. When I'm with family and friends, I have my relaxed, goofy hat on. So I'm normally always the same.
Yeah.
Because normally I'm in a relaxed situation when I'm with friends and family. But now I would code switch if I was in a different situation where first I'm in danger or something like that. Then yeah, I would be a totally different person in that type of situation. But I'm normally just the same person.
Yeah.
The same laid back Teresa.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm like, only time is if I have my professional hat on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So my next question was about spirituality and religion. So it's pretty common for a lot of Black people to be either religious or spiritual, but obviously that's not the case for everyone. Like I said at the beginning, we're not a monolith.
Right.
So my question was, do you have a religious or spiritual practice in your life? And if so, how does your spirituality play a role in your life?
Well, I'll say me personally, I pray to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He died on the cross for me for my sins. So that's who I go to. I only go to him when I need, worship or religious, with my religious life. So whether I'm having a good day or a bad day, I seek him in everything. So, I mean, I was raised in a Baptist church, but as an adult, I'm a member of a non-denominational church. So, New Birth Fellowship Church here in Indianapolis. And my pastor, Henry McMullen, who is our senior pastor, who happens to also be a fellow author. So I don't believe in like the new age stuff that they're doing now. My routine is, I have to, when I first get up, I meet with God. I do a devotional, I journal, I do my prayer, and then I'm able to start my day. And if I miss that, I don't really have a good day. So I normally need that to get my day started and to get it, to be peaceful in my day, whether I'm at work or writing at home or with, with my husband. So And we are a husband and wife that prays together. So that's a big part of, our life. So it's one of those things that you can't compromise on. But I know there's a lot of new age meditation type stuff going on now, but I'm not judging anybody for who does that, or if that's their, their routine or for their spiritual life. It's just not for me. So prayer is all I need to do when it comes to my religious life. I just have to seek him.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, thanks. So, the next few questions are going to get into more about the writing process and creating characters. So, the next question, as a writer, how do you approach your process for creating your characters?
Oh, okay. Well, as far as my characters, I observe a lot. Whenever I'm out and about, if I'm at events, I observe people's behaviors, their body language, their dialogue, and I kind of make notes. So I like to start off with the personality and quirks of my main character before visualizing what that character looks like. And then once I have the main character, I make like a map um, on how that character connects to the rest of the characters in the book, and then I develop from there. And then I visualize those extra characters, and then I might get their look and their personality and their demeanor down. So I normally always start with my main character. I try to get to know my main character, and then I can branch off and fill in the rest of the characters.
Okay, cool. I like how you said that you kind of start with observing people around you and how
Mhm.
they act and react and the way they talk and stuff. Because I'm like, that's something I do as well. I'm like,
Do you? Yeah,
what?
yeah, yeah. You gotta observe. I mean, you can be around a lot of. I mean, everybody has different personalities and things. So, and I like to watch the interactions between people and their body language and how they're expressing themselves, because I think it helps with character development. So, but I
Yeah.
don't do it in a creepy kind of way. I'm not observing people in a creepy kind of way. Let's just let that be known. We don't observe people in creepy ways, people.
Right. Right.
It's
No
just for research.
research purposes only. Um, but yeah, I would definitely suggest to others, like, if you get a chance, go to a park, go to a
Mhm.
mall or something, and just look at how
How people,
people interact
yeah,
and what they do. So
yeah.
yeah.
I did that this past weekend. We had a table at the Indiana Comic Convention here in Indianapolis, and all the different people that came through there, just seeing the different ways they interacted with each other, some in cosplay, some out of cosplay, how they talked to each other, how they interacted with strangers that would come up to them and say, "Hey, can I take a picture of your cosplay outfit?" It was just different things like that. It was just like a slew of observation in that place all
Yeah.
week. So it was good. It was good to be there.
Yeah. Um So, and also speaking of the uh, creating the character process, do you ever use things like the Enneagram or other personality assessments for your characters?
I did before, but now I'm starting to use that on the new book that I'm working on. I'm incorporating the Enneagram. Now that I know what my Enneagram number is and my wing, I'm like, oh, you can really develop some great characters if you use this particular tool. So I went and got some information about it. And I was listening to a live that Brittany Wang did for the release of her books, her serial. And she had used a book for her characters, and I went and got that book so I could read up on it. And it's a really good book.
Yeah.
So I'm using that to try to fit it for my characters for this new young adult thriller that I'm working on.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think the Enneagram is really interesting to use for character development. I've been looking at some of the characters in my book, and I'm like, this is why you're doing this.
What you're doing?
Yeah, like you're a 3. It makes sense. Yeah. So let's see. My next question was, can you tell us a little bit about your books and your characters? So I do have your latest one here. If you guys didn't know, Teresa's latest book is the journal. So this one came out last week.
Yeah,
last
October 14th. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's the day after my birthday. So
Oh.
cool. So do you want to tell us a little bit about it and your characters that are here?
Yeah, the journal is like you said, it's my newest release, and it's about a novelist who inherits her uncle's estate. And she goes there for a writing retreat, and she stumbles upon a journal that her uncle wrote, and it has these unspeakable acts in it. And she decides it would be a good tool to use for her next book. So she starts to investigate the things that's happening in this journal. But unbeknownst to her, she doesn't realize that there's some individuals that's in the town who will do whatever it takes to make sure that the contents of that particular journal does not get out. So she has to try to stay alive, plus research the stuff about her uncle, because she believes that her uncle was murdered. So that's what starts her investigating. So it's kind of like a mystery thriller.
Yeah.
But and my main character, her name is Shoshona Jackson. She's the novelist, and she's an investigator at heart. But she's also stubborn, and once she gets set on something, she doesn't like to budge. She's going to go head on to it, even if she gets advice. She does have a best friend named Kimma, and Kimma is kind of the voice of reason. Even though she's stubborn and she won't listen to him, he's like the voice of reason. He's her best friend, but he's also her literary agent in the book, and he runs the agency with his cousin Melanie. But they all went to college together, so they're all friends. And Melanie tries to back up Kimba and trying to get Shoshona to kind of leave the situation alone, but that doesn't always work because Shoshona just wants to do what Shoshona wants to do. So she's a little bit of me when it comes to being stubborn and investigating. And even though her, Kimma and Melanie, have her best interest at heart, she wants to find out what happened. So she's, not letting the people in the town steer her away.
Okay. That sounds really cool. I'm like, can't wait to get to this because I love murder mysteries. So,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, there's some other things that happen in the book. I don't want to talk about those particular characters because I don't want to spoil anything.
oh, do you want to tell us about your other characters in your other book? You have a duology, right?
Oh, yes. It happened to me, Duology. It is the first book. This is my proof copy of that. This is the first book. It happened to me. And it's about a teenage girl named Delilah who's spending the weekend with her best friend, but she receives a disturbing call that she finds out that there's been a family tragedy. So she's trying to deal with that, but and she kind of ignored some unwanted advances toward her. And then once it comes to, once she starts to actually notice these things, she soon has to decide on whether she's going to face them or she's just going to let everything fall apart. So Delilah is the main character in this first book, and she's a typical teenager, but she's also selfish. She has issues with authoritative figures. And she doesn't have a great relationship with her mother. So she acts out a lot. Um, and she doesn't understand that some of her actions can be perceived the wrong way. So she just likes to get in her way, and she doesn't like people to tell her no. So she really doesn't have the capacity to think of other people. It's all about Delilah and what Delilah wants. So sometimes when you think like that, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And the second book to that is called It Won't Happen to Me. And this is the second book. I'll put it up there so people can see it. I'm sorry, these are my proof copies because I sold out of all of them, so I don't have any more on my shelf. But It Won't Happen to Me is about Delilah's best friend, Tiffany. And Tiffany is basically dealing with some issues about Delilah. So she's determined to find the truth about what happened. So she tries to take matters into her own hand and not understanding that it might lead her into the same trouble. But Tiffany in the first book is more of a follower. She's strong when it comes to her mother and dealing with her mother and her boyfriend, but not when it comes to dealing with her best friend Delilah. So in this book, though, the second book, she's grieving and she's determined to get to the truth in this one. So she's built up a better strength in herself, and she's more authoritative in her body language and how she deals with people. So even though she doesn't make sound decisions, so they're typical teenage girls that think they know everything, but unfortunately, that's not always a good thing.
Right.
So those are my two characters, and I started writing them back in 2009, and decided that I didn't publish the first book until 2018, though. So it took me a while to get it all together before publishing it.
Okay. Well, so with those characters from your duology, what, I guess, did you have the same process creating those characters that you do now? Like, is it the same every time, or do you change your process?
When I did the duology, the It Happened to Me duology, I didn't have the process that I use now. That they were my first two pilot books that I was still trying to search who I was as a writer.
Mhm.
So I really didn't have a process. I outlined, um, but with the journal, I used the new process. So I went a little bit more into those characters, and was connected a lot better with those characters. My first two, Delilah and Tiffany, um, drove me crazy because they reminded me of myself a lot. So they drove me crazy. But I didn't really have a process then. I just did like a chapter by chapter outline. And then in the editing process is when I start looking into their characters. But with the journal, I actually, even though I did an outline, I fully did a character outline for Shoshona and Kimma and Melanie in the book. So my process was totally different.
Okay.
Yeah, and like this with the books that I'm writing, because the journal is a duology as well, and I'm writing the second book to that.
Mhm.
So, and then the young adult book that I'm working on now too. It's I'm using more of my new process along with the Enneagram to trying to find out which process is going to work better for me. I
Yeah.
know the first process doesn't, but the second one and the Enneagram, I'm gonna see how those processes work and see if it's better.
And I think it's interesting hearing how, for writers, how their process changes over time and how
Yeah, Yeah.
develop their characters and create the story. Because I was always kind of the same way. I was like, I've always been uh I've always been a uh pantser, and so I've always just had an idea for a story and just got
Went
right
with it.
into yeah, gone right into writing without doing an outline or any prep work. But this time around, I've actually tried to outline things more and try to work on some of the world building and the characters. Um, Still have a bit of a pantser in me, so it's not like a super detailed outline. I'm
Right.
still kind of just, let's see what the characters do now type of thing. But yeah, it's working through and kind of changing and shifting as I go.
I think I did that mainly with the first one. I think I pantsed more than actually plotted,
Mhm.
because it was the very first book. So I think I did more pantsing in that one. And I really didn't think of outlining or anything until I actually started going through the revisions for it. And I was like, oh, I probably should have outlined with this. Um, because I noticed that some of the characters, one of the boyfriend's name, I had at the beginning it was one name, and then at the end,
It
toward the
was
middle, I had changed his name because I didn't like the first name, and I was like, "What are you doing?" So yeah, I kind of pants the first one more, but I didn't with the second one. So and the journal is my third book, so I think I think each writer gets better each time they write. You learn a lot more about you and your writing the more you write. So I
yeah.
think as I keep writing and keep going, I'll get better and better with, with the outlining and the character development and stuff. So, but the key is that you just keep writing
Yeah.
and stop. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's funny because I did the exact same thing one time with one of my side characters, where their name was one thing at the beginning, and then halfway through I realized, oh wait, I changed their name. But that was because I actually I had written a huge chunk before, and then I had taken like a really long break from writing the story, and then when I came
hmm
back to it, I didn't remember their name.
I did that. I did that with the first one. I did take a break from it, and then I realized that one of the counselors in the book, I forgot to change his name, and I made his last name the same last name as the main character's mother, her boyfriend.
Oh,
She meets this gentleman and they have this. I was like, oh my God, what was you thinking? So I cleaned it up in the second book, but I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that. But it happens. It happens. Yeah. I gave the guidance counselor and her and Delilah's mother's gentleman friend that she meets the same last name. So they have this. So I was like, oh, I can't believe I did that.
yeah.
Yeah. But I was like, it's already published now. So I'm not, I'll change
Mm.
it later on.
Yeah. Um, okay, so the next question I had, this one I think is a really interesting question to hear people's different opinions and takes on it. Because this was in one of my writing groups on Facebook. Someone had asked the question about writing historical fiction and using terms that were used during that time period, even though they're considered offensive and slurs today.
Mhm.
And so I think, like, looking at that conversation in the group, there were a lot of good points brought up on, both sides. And so I kind of wanted to ask, like, where you landed in the conversation, and like what do you think of writers using terms like the N word in a historical fiction novel? And also, is
Um,
would that be something that's only okay if the writer themselves is Black, or does race not matter as long as it's historically accurate?
well, I'll say my take is probably totally different than everybody's. To me, I really don't care what color you are if you're writing a historical fiction according to the time period. If the individuals back then used the N word at that time and it enhances the quality of the book or the story, I don't see really anything wrong with that. But now, on the other hand, if you're just going around throwing the N word around without any meaning or context and you're just saying it in your books just to be saying it, then I
Mm,
have a problem. But if you're using it according to the time period correctly, then I don't see, and I don't think only Black people can write books that have the N word in it. I think it's worse when Black people say it, to tell you the truth. I mean, it's horrible when white people say it, and it does make you angry because I don't think they really know the meaning when they're saying it. But when Black people say it, I think it's even worse when your own Black people say it. But if it's historical fiction back then, in those days, they said it. I mean, and if you're trying to stay true to the history within your historical fiction book, then you might have it in there, but just don't have it on every page. It doesn't need to be on every page. But I don't think that only Black people should be able to say that in their historical fiction
mhm.
books. I mean, some white people do take it a little bit too far,
Yeah,
but they might need to calm it down a little bit. But I mean, I can't tell a white person they can't put that in their book if they're writing a historical fiction book. I
right.
just think it needs to be done in a classy type way,
Mhm.
or not classy, but more respectful type of way.
Right.
I just know I wouldn't put it in my books, and I'm Black.
Yeah, and I agree with all that. It's like there's got to be a purpose for it. You have,
Yeah.
like, as writers, I think we need to be very intentional with our writing and our word choice. And I think each word choice, you know, any word that you use, I think should have a specific purpose and reason for it. And so, I was actually thinking about, because when this conversation in the group happened, I had finished a book recently, and now I've finished two books that handled kind of the same thing in
Hmm.
very different ways. And so,
Oh.
kind of seeing them both. So, in one of the books, um, and this wasn't a slur towards the Black community, it was more towards the LGBTQ community. Um,
Oh.
and it was, the F word that's used towards
Yeah.
gay people
Yeah.
in the community. And so in this one, um, you know, the author uses the actual word in the book, and I think it works really well in that scene and in that instance. He only uses it once, which is all it needs to be used.
Right.
It works because I don't know if I would have such a powerful emotional reaction if if it wasn't there, especially because the character that's saying this is the main character's father. So to
Oh.
have a family relationship, a close relationship like that, use a derogatory term
Yeah.
towards the character, I think had that powerful impact that
Hmm.
he was going for that scene. So I think it was done well in there. another book that I read after that recently um, was with um, the main characters, all the characters were black, and uh, they didn't. So I don't remember. This was actually not even a historical type of book. It was more of a futuristic sci-fi
Oh, okay.
book. But they talk about how another character um, used a term that was uh, used a derogatory term towards the main character, um, but they didn't use the word on page. It was just kind of discussed that, they said this in this
Oh,
tone of
okay.
voice and stuff. Um, and it. I don't think, if it wasn't for that discussion in the Facebook group, I don't really think those two instances would have stood out to me as much as it did, because it was something that was recently brought up,
Friendly discuss. Yeah.
discussed. Um,
Right.
but I know, like, one person in the group had said that they didn't think it was necessary to actually use the word. You can always say, "Oh, this character said this," or describe their tone of voice and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I don't think readers will really notice or mind if you don't use the actual word in the book.
Words.
And so I was like, yeah, that's a good point. Because when I was reading it in that second book, I was like, I don't think it would have stood out to me that they didn't say the actual word. They just described it in the
Right.
narrative. Um, so I think it's something where you have to look at the story and the scene, and what sort of um, impact or emotion are you trying to bring out in the reader,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
what's going to be the best way to do that? What are the best words to do that?
Yeah. Because I think it could be done well
Hmm.
within the story, and it has been.
Right.
It's been like that, but then it can be done in a bad way too,
Yeah.
if they're not, if it doesn't fit the scene or so like I said, I mean, it doesn't matter what color you are, just as long as you're doing it properly and
Right.
it fits the story
Yeah.
in that according to that time period.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I know some people get really upset about that. You know, I've seen some stuff on Twitter where they get really pretty mad about that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Like,
Which
people calm down.
which is why I think which that's the reason it was brought up in
In the group.
the writing
Yeah.
group, to get other people's take on it, because I think that is one of the topics that gets a lot of heated discussions on both
Hmm.
sides.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay, so I just have two questions left on here. So
Okay.
if anyone watching the live right now, we're gonna do a quick Q&A session um, after these questions. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat box, and we'll get to them during the Q&A time. So my next question here is, what are some Black stereotypes and tropes you think writers should stay away from?
Um. Oh, black stereotypes. Mm. Well, there's the every black person is a thug. Um, Black people are angry and violent. Um, they're drug dealers, or slang. Um, there's if they have a career, normally it's in advertisement or music, or and the one that gets me the most is preachers that do horrible things. I wish writers would stay away from that. There's the stepfathers that are always bad. There's the losers that either cheat on their girlfriends or their spouses. Black people are the black stereotype of black people are always thieves. There's the single parent, um, the black man that lives at home with his mother. There's just so many.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. But those are the ones that first came to mind that I had wrote down.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of ones I would say to add to that. Obviously, you said the angry black person.
Yeah.
There's also what was there was one I was thinking of, and now I'm forgetting. This happens to me every single time. There was one I was thinking of. Which stereotype was it? It was.
There's also the prostitution or black hoes. That's done a lot in books too.
The Jezebel type.
Yeah, the Jezebel type. Mm-hmm.
Oh, the magical best friend is the one I was thinking of.
Oh yeah.
Mainly in fantasy and paranormal type stories. You know, the magical best friend who's always there just to help the main character figure themselves out, or like help them get out of trouble, or they don't really have their own story or their own arc, right? They're kind of just there to be of service to the main character.
And then I read in one book where it was that type of situation, but the author also made her like dumb. Like she she wasn't a smart character. She was just there to kind of help the main character like move along, but she was a black character, but she wasn't, smart. It was like she couldn't think for herself.
Yeah.
Which I don't care for those.
Yeah, those are some of the ones I would say some of the stereotypes to stay away from. There's actually a book that I've recommended before to writers that's what's the name of it? I think it's just like How to Write Black Characters is the title of the book. I forget which publishing company it was. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So, here it is. It's Salt and Sage Books. And I will leave the link for that book in the description below as well. But it's from the Salt and Sage Books company, and it's just called How to Write Black Characters. And in there, they go over a lot of the different Black stereotypes as well. So if anyone is interested, that's one book that I tend to recommend to people. So let's.
Another thing I don't care for is when you're in a situation where, and this has happened to me several times, where when you work with like other, say you work with other Black people, everybody thinks that just because I'm Black, that I can talk to all Black people and understand them and know them. So when they have to ask a question or they need to say something to them, they want me to do that for them instead of them just going to the person and doing it themselves. And mainly it's white folks that do that. But it's like, I don't know that person. All Black people don't know each other, so we don't know how each other thinks. So just because we're Black doesn't mean that we we know what that person's thinking or how that person's going to react or how what their body language is going to be. So if you need to just go over and talk to the person. It's not that hard, but don't try to have me go over there because you're scared to go over there and say something. But that's happened to me a couple of times, and I'm like, why do people do that?
And you kind of have to wonder, like, what exactly are they afraid of? Like, what are they afraid is going to happen if they come up and talk to the person themselves?
Yeah, I mean, it's happened a couple of times. Like, just go talk to the person. They're a person. It's not like every Black person is not a bad person. Every Black person is not going to attack you or cuss you out, or you got to stop putting every Black person that you meet in that box, because everybody's not like that.
Yeah.
But it happens a lot.
But I think it also goes to show, like, we were talking about in the beginning how you said that your interactions with white folks doesn't change just because you've had a few negative ones with people in the past. And I think that's something that, if we can all learn to do that, that would be a lot better, because I think for some people that does change their perspective, and they are afraid of interacting with the person in the future because of those negative past.
One bad experience, yeah. Yeah, but we can't let one bad experience stop us from. I mean, you don't know. You might be meeting somebody that's supposed to be a blessing to you, and you're going to miss out on that because you're too scared to to speak to them. Because you never know.
Yeah. All right. So my last question here is just, what advice would you give writers wanting to learn how to write well-rounded Black characters?
The first thing I would say is observe Black people on both sides of the track, whether rich or poor, in different situations. Observe, and then just talk to them. Be honest and say, hey, I'm researching for a character that I'm writing. Is it okay if I ask you a couple of questions? Don't want to take up too much of your time. Just want to ask you a couple of questions, which is the easiest thing. I mean, be honest with the person, and just make sure it's somebody that you're comfortable with, that you either work with or happens to be a friend of yours, or someone you've met or had some kind of dealing with, which would make you feel more comfortable. But I think also talk to Black people that's in the profession of the character that you're writing, because you'll get better information. But the main thing is just to talk to, and then once you get all your information together and you've written it, then get your sensitivity readers to read it to make sure that you're representing, Black people properly. And everybody, I mean, whether you're Black or not, I mean, or you're a white author writing a Black character, if you take those type of steps, you make your character more authentic, and you're not disrespecting, that culture or nationality. And then two, you're getting educated too while you're doing it. So you're learning, as you're, researching and talking to, Black people. But I think the main thing is like talking to them and actually observing them, and then getting your sensitivity readers that can help you realize, okay, you went too far in this area. Maybe you need to go back and change that.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really, really good. Um, and there was something else that I was gonna say. You made me think of something else.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah. The other thing I would say, would just add to this, is also to read books by Black
Yes, yeah, Black
authors.
authors.
Read books that have Black characters, main characters in the stories, and see how that's done and how they're described and all of that. And
Mhm.
so, my question that kind of goes along with this is, are there any books that you would recommend people read if they're wanting to uh, learn how to write Black characters?
I would say my absolute favorite would be Tiffany D. Jackson. She writes very well-rounded Black characters, and she writes realistic Black characters in her books. Um, and also, I mean, even Angie Thomas, her books have the typical Black person in them. I mean, she writes them very well. But Tiffany, I would say, would be my favorite. I think you can get a lot of information out of reading her books and how Black people interact with each other, how they talk, um, and how they handle difficult situations. And Angie Thomas does a good job in that too, on how she writes characters that handle different, hard situations. Because a lot of the situations that are in her books, I mean, Black people live it every day. So
Mm-hmm.
I think she does a very good job on actually displaying that in her books. Let me think. Who else? I would say Shelly Ellis. Her characters, she depicts Black people very well in her books. Um, she also writes as Shelly Straton, which is her more women's fiction type writing.
Mm-hmm.
That shows the more better emotional side of Black characters in her books. I would say she would be a good person to read either her Shelly Ellis books or her Shelly Stratton books. Who else? Those are the only ones I can think of right off. And um, I'm kind of looking at
I
my bookshelf to try to figure. I'm like looking at my bookshelf, like, who else do I have over there that would be good? Yeah,
there
those are the main ones that's coming to me.
there are two that are coming off the top of my head, but they're not. So I don't read much contemporary stuff. Mainly love fantasy. So these two are fantasy authors. Um, but oh gosh, and now I'm forgetting her name. But her book is called Blood Like Magic. Um,
Oh, what is her name?
yeah,
Oh, it's
I'm
escaping me. I
I'm
look at her
blanking.
YouTube videos. I like
Yeah,
her YouTube videos.
and
Oh man, what is her name?
I will leave um her book and her name in the comments below after the live stream. Oh,
Yeah.
someone just said it. Lisa Samberry. Uh,
Yes, yes,
Lisa,
yes.
no, Lascelle, I think is how you pronounce it. Samberry, of Blood Like Magic. And then
Yeah,
the
let's
other
see.
one is Roseanne Rosanna A. Brown, who
Brown.
wrote
Yes.
uh, uh, a song of
Wrath and Ruins.
yeah, a song of rats and
Yeah,
Rachel.
yeah, because I'm looking at it on my shelf
Yeah.
now. Yeah.
But those two I really, really love, and I think they did an amazing job with their.
Now,
Yeah,
Blood Like Magic, I haven't read yet. Lascelles, I
really
haven't
good.
read that one yet.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Um,
I still have to read that one. It's still on my shelf.
but those are the two that I can think of off the top of my head. And both fantasy, because I love fantasy. So now why don't we jump into, we did have a couple of questions in the comments. And so Juicy Stag said, hey, what's up? Yeah, what's up?
Hello.
Hi. Um, and Salter, thank you for taking the time to share. I am glad to be doing this. I hope
Yes.
it's really helpful for a lot of people. So, and then we have this question. Juicy Stack said, wait, wouldn't it be racist to write a Black character different than another character? I'm confused. I always write characters uniracial. So I'll let you kind of answer that first, and then I'll give my take on that.
Wait a minute. He said it's what did he say? Wouldn't it be racist to write a Black character different than another Black character?
Then
Another
another
character?
character. So I'm thinking he means,
What does he mean?
I'm thinking they mean, would it be racist to write the Black character different than you would a white character or any other type of character? And assuming
No, because
that's what.
I think each character is different. So, and I don't think a white character would react to certain situations like a Black character would, and their dialogue would be totally different. So, I don't think it would be racist in doing that. I mainly write Black characters in my books. So, and if I was to write a white character, and if that white character was especially going to be my main character, I would talk and discuss with white characters, and I would observe white characters and how they talk and how they interact. So I don't think it would be racist if you're writing a Black character different than another character, because if you wrote them all the same, then it wouldn't really be like a book moving forward. You'd be stuck with the same type of people. So I don't think, yeah.
Well, and kind of to add on that, this is something that I actually discuss in my online course, How to Write Diverse Characters. You do want to write your characters differently, because the way your Black characters react to a situation is not going to be the same way your white characters react.
Right.
Actually, in my course, I actually share like the scene from the movie The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. So there's a scene at the beginning of the movie where the dad has his whole family around the dinner table, and he is telling his kids, he's teaching them, this is how you need to act when you are around a police officer. If we get pulled over by a cop and you guys are in the car, this is what needs to happen. This is what you're going to see me do. I'm going to have my hands visibly present in front of me. I'm not going to reach for anything. He tells them, he's teaching them how to behave in certain situations. In this particular situation, being pulled over by a cop. Now, that that conversation and that um, teaching moment is not something you're going to find with a white character from a white family.
Right.
And
Hmm.
so that's why we talk about and we look at, you know, what is the character's background. That's, you know, their race, their background. That's going to influence the way they view the world, the way they interact with others in the world, the way they see people. Um, and so, you know, that's why when you're looking at writing characters, you really need to take that, um, take their background, their cultural background, their race and history. All of that needs
The
to come
consideration.
into consideration.
Consideration. Yeah,
Yeah. Mm.
that's true.
Um, and then uh, someone else had asked, how do you feel about white authors writing Black protagonists and protagonists of color? Do you think it can be done well in a way that doesn't cause harm?
Yeah, I believe so. Um, and I believe that's been done before. And
Mhm.
I think they can do it well. And most white authors, I believe, would do the research, hopefully, when they're writing a Black protagonist. Now, I just met a white older lady that writes fantasy books, sci-fi books, matter of fact, and all her main characters are Black in her stories. Now, the only thing I had a problem with one of her stories was that she made the main character Black, but she made the guy a loser. But in reading the book, I see why she made him a loser, because it was several things in that story in his life that he had to overcome. So he started off being this loser in the book, but as he progressed and his arc kept going, he ended up helping a lot of people. So he became stronger and he overcame the things that was holding him back, that was making him a loser. So I think you can do it well. Um, and be considerate when you're doing it. So I don't think white people can't write Black protagonists or antagonists for that matter. I mean, I'm not saying the white people can't do it. Um, I just think they need to be sensitive when they're doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Um,
yeah.
I totally agree as well. Um, you know, whenever I see a question like that, it always makes me think of, you know, one of the main reason I uh, started my online course and why I'm doing these monthly Write and Diversity series
Mhm.
stuff, is because I don't think enough people really understand the difference between writing uh, writing a story that has diverse characters versus writing a story that's more of an own voices type of story.
Right, right.
Um, and I think, you know, that question kind of, um, when I see that question, I feel like, and I could totally be wrong, but I feel like a lot of times people are afraid of writing diverse characters because they feel like it may not be their place if they're not from that background.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, that's why I talk about own voices versus diverse characters. And you can have, uh, you know, a character, you can have a Black protagonist in your character, even if you're a white author. You just have to, like you said,
Yeah.
make sure you do your research properly
Research.
and
Right.
have those. sensitivity readers. And it has been done well before in the
Mhm.
past. I think one book that comes to me off the top of my head is the Diviners series by Libba Bray. I don't know how much research she had to put in for her series, but I'm imagining it's a lot because she has a lot of different types of characters in that series in her story. She has Black characters, she has um, LGBTQ characters, white characters, disabled characters, Jewish characters, like a whole group of different types of characters. And they're all very different, but they all feel like real people. And I think she did a really great job with that series and how she created her characters, especially for a series that the series takes place in the past. And so you do see of um, some of the discrimination that Black people face. You do see some of that come up in her series, but I
Mhm.
think she does a really great job with how she creates her characters. So I don't know
No,
how much research, but I'm sure she did a lot.
she must have did a lot though. She must have did a lot.
Yeah.
I just recently was listening to an audiobook and I had to stop the audiobook because the character was like it was a Latino character, and in this one chapter I had to stop listening to it because she kept degrading the Latino character in the book. Um, and some of the comments and names that she said, I was like, okay, I can't finish this book, and I ended up stopping the book. And it's a hard thriller book, but it was just the way she talked about Hispanics and Latinos. It really bothered me, so I ended up stopping the audiobook and sending it back to the library because I just couldn't finish it.
Yeah.
And instances like that, I just think that's just going a little bit too far. When you're a white author, so I don't think it just didn't sit well with me. But that's just me, and that's just my opinion when I was listening to the book. Because I had the audiobook and the actual book, and I just sent both of them back because I just couldn't continue the story. And it could have been a really good book. I've heard great things about the book, but I was like, no, I can't. I
Yeah.
couldn't do it. And it was just from that one chapter that's what turned me completely off of
Mm.
the book. So, I mean, some people do things well, and then there's some people that just, you know, beat the head over the horse, and some things just doesn't sit well.
Yeah. And that's why, if one thing I've said as well, if you can, it's always better to get more than, definitely try to get more than one sensitivity reader if you have it in the budget to do so. Because I definitely think, the more um, the more eyes you have on your work looking at a
Hmm.
certain thing, the better it's going to be, especially, I keep bringing this up, I keep saying we are not all a monolith. So something that, may not bother me and I look over it, it might do something else to you, trigger you in some
Right,
bit of
right.
way, and you can bring it up to the person. So, you know, having more than one sensitivity reader, if you can, is definitely going to help a lot. Um, but I know that may not always be something that's possible or budget wise. So definitely uh, my next advice would be to get as much diversity within your beta readers as possible.
As possible. Yeah.
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 Okay. Let me see if we have any more questions. If anyone has any last minute questions, drop them below. Juicy Stuck said, I was going to put a Black main character in my fantasy, but you guys are making me question the whole decision. I don't want to mess it up. Not
No.
to scare anyone away.
Yeah. Yeah, you should put that character in. Don't just because we're talking about it, don't let us stop you from, especially if it fits in your story. Don't put your character in your story. do not just take that character out just because of what we've been discussing today. If that Black character fits your book and your plot and your structure and the story that you're trying to release, then don't just take them out just because we're talking about stuff.
Right. And this is again, this is why I do this series. It's not to scare anyone away from writing a certain type of character, but it's just to help you guys to think about some things and to approach it in a way that tries to not cause any more harm, I would say.
Yeah.
So, I think, like we've been saying, if you do your research and if you get sensitivity readers, you'll be fine. You'll be fine.
Even if you get beta readers, and just make sure that some of your beta readers are Black people, and I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And also something else I say sometimes as well to students is that keep in mind that you're not going to be able to please 100% of people 100% of the time. You'll never please everyone all the time. So you might have a really great, amazing, awesome book, and someone will always find issues with it. So
of course. Every time.
Yeah. Keep that
every time. Yeah. And don't write your book like you're trying to please everybody.
Right.
No.
Right.
You can't do that. You'll stress yourself out if you do that.
Yeah. And you'll never be able to finish it.
Because you'll be so stressed out that you're, and then you'll be trying to be a perfectionist, and then your book will never come out. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go into it knowing that you're not going to please everybody.
Let's see. Trying to see if there's any more questions. This one says, well, I'm writing a fantasy, so that kind of negates the racial aspects, right? If I have a Black MC in a fantasy, there's no systematic racism or anything in my world, so they'll just be a character. And yeah, you could have that's one of the great things about fantasies. You're creating your own world, your entire world. So there doesn't have to be any racism in your world if you don't want there to be.
You don't want it, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the great thing about fantasy. It's not real life.
Right. You can make it whatever you want it to be.
Yeah. You're basically God in your world.
Yeah.
And okay, the last thing I see here. Thank you both so much. That's a huge encouragement. I totally agree with everything you said. I definitely intend to run it by a lot of diverse people. Well, good.
Wonderful, wonderful.
I'm glad this helps. So, um, well, thank you. Thank you, everyone who was here joining
Yeah.
us live. This, I think, has been a great session, great interview. Um, so, if you were here with us live, thank you for being here and for asking your questions.
Great questions.
Yeah, they're all great questions. And I would always say, don't be afraid to ask questions. Sometimes people are afraid it's a dumb question or they'll get looked at weird. It's like, we don't know what we don't know. So don't be
Right.
afraid to ask questions. Um, Last comment, so true. People pleasing and writing definitely don't go together.
No.
I know this from experience, still struggling with this personally. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, doesn't go well at all. Um, but thank you guys for being here. I hope this was super helpful and informative to everyone who was watching. And thank you, Teresa, for coming and joining me here today.
It was my honor. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this was awesome. Um, so if you guys want to follow Teresa on social media or you want to get any of her books, all of her links are in the description box below. So you guys can check that out. And if you want to watch more videos in this Write in Diversity series, I do have a playlist linked in the description box as well. And so topics that I've done in the past so far are pansexuality, disability, and Judaism. So if you guys want to check out the past topics and interviews, the playlists are below for you to check out. And then my last thing is if you are a writer and you're wanting to learn more about how to write different diverse characters, check out my online course that I have. It's how to write diverse characters. So all of that information, all of the links for everything are in the description box below. So that is pretty much it. That's all I have for us for today. So thank you again, Teresa.
Oh, no problem. No problem at all.
Um, so I will see you guys next month. Um, next month with another interview. So, bye.
Bye.